Hello, my name is Danny Schott. Welcome to Backroom Broadsides Live, a spoken word series curated by James Ruja and sponsored by the Riverview Neighborhood Association. Now, the reason that you see me instead of James is it's my profound pleasure to introduce James, to you. I've known James Ruja for probably 40 years now. I think since he was a graduate student at Rutgers. James and I have a lot in common. He hails or was from Bergenfield, New Jersey. I'm from Dumont, New Jersey. But let me just tell you the official biography first. James Ruja was a travel writer for more than 30 years until suffering an unexpected illness back in 2015. Along the way, he visited more than 100 countries on more than 200 trips overseas. He was the Pacific Asia Travel Association's Journalist of the Year in 1991. He currently runs Backroom Broadsides in Jersey City, a series that is online, as you know, because you're watching it. He studied at Naropa Institute in Colorado, was the editor of the St. Mark's Poetry Project newsletter in 1980, and he has published numerous poems, mostly with Big Scream magazine that David Cope runs out of Michigan. Some of his poetry and essays can be found at the Museum of American Poetics at www.poetspath.com. Local Knowledge magazine, also a magazine that comes out of New Jersey, will come out with his essay comparing the Essay on Criticism by Alexander Pope and three poems of John Ashbery this fall. I think we're in for a real treat tonight because James is always the host of this series. Tonight, he's the featured poet. So please open your ears and eyes and let's listen to James. Thank you.
Wow. I'll tell you, I get a lot of kicks out of this series, and this has been one of them. I mean, Danny and I go way back, as he pointed out. I am reminded of, at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Stevie Wonder was doing introductions recently, and he was introducing a guy who had just been let into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The guy who wrote A Rainy Night in Georgia, I'm forgetting his name now, But he said that when he received his award, he said, "This is like a lion opening a door for a kitten." So, Mr. Lion, thank you for two things, for opening a door and for not eating me alive. I really appreciate it. Danny, you're the greatest, man. Thank you. And I'm going to be introducing you too when we get around. Okay, so I've got tons of new writing. And what I've done is I've kind of taken selections. I've got like 4 projects going, and I've got selections from each of them. But the first one I'm going to read is a prose poem that I wrote for my good friend Mark Rogers, who I've also known for like 45 years. Right at this moment, he's writing mysteries on the west coast of Mexico, where he's now living. And so this is for him. The working title is Escape. Mark did it at night, he said, swimming to an outpost on the edge of the polar ice cap to the house owned by Warren Beatty. The map spread across the desk, and it showed the top of the world in all its whiteness, surrounded by black sea. White islands scattered in the black ink. The islands trailed off from the edge of the polar cap, white as the cap. Shading on the cap indicated mountains and, of course, a small black dot captioned simply Warren Beatty's Polar Homestead. It should come as no surprise that Warren Beatty, that remarkable man, should have found his way there. How many wonderful situations had he found his way into? Too many to count. It's not only the amount of choices he could make, billions more than the rest of us, but it's the quality of the choices he does make. Hollywood is filled with people ruined hopelessly by the kind of luck Warren Beatty had. Although it seemed a distance of about 800 miles, a look on the map showed it to be thousands of miles. Yet, Mark swam it every night. "Is the water cold?" he'd shout, his eyebrows leaping incredulously. Of course it is cold, but only the first few moments. Once you begin to swim, your body heat rushes to check the discomfort. From there, it's just one arm over the other and kick, kick, kick. Mark sauntered down the corridor under the fluorescent lights to the clutter of his desk, his map trailing behind him. I thought of Mark out there, arm over arm, in the black water, the mountains and mountains of waves coming at him. I pictured him swimming up the face of those mountainous waves, and then gliding down their backside. Waves that began in Tahiti, where children skipped rocks in lagoons and found their way up to the top of the world to become mountains in the polar sea. Above him, above the sound of his aerobic breathing, the silent stars beamed out a silver glaze that drenched the wash in the trough and dissolved majestically in the caps of the waves. He'd also mentioned the gulls. They'd set out with him every night when he pushed off from shore, hundreds of gulls following him. "Silly birds," he said. "It's not like I had any food to give them. I guess it's just a habit of birds like that, pelagic birds, to follow people across seas, waiting for them to throw things overboard. They called and cried and barked and yelped until morning, when Mark would wade up on the shore of the ice cap. Then, I supposed, Annette Benning would walk out from that homestead with a steaming cup of coffee and a towel. "Come on in," she'd say. "Warren's inside taking a shower. We have whipped up some vegetarian hash and eggs." She's such a beautiful woman. Warren Beatty should be a hero to every man, and Mark too. But it begins with faith. And I don't mean the crap they feed the birds in the church, pushing wafers into gullible heads on Sunday morning, swiftly enough to give them time to make it home for the NFL kickoff. Wafers for breakfast, corn dogs by noon. You keep your Jesus. I'll take Mark swimming every night across all that black, mysterious space. And I've had so many great friends, and that was Mark Rogers. But now this next poem is a 14-line poem called Diogenes Lamp, and it's from my friend Demo. And Demo has had the mixed blessing and curse of seeming to have more soul than anybody I know. And that can be painful too. Anyway, so this poem is for him and for the paradox of his cursed luck. Anyway, if he's listening, blessings to you, brother. Diogenes Lamp for Demo. Always different. Always a slow honesty shining on silent complications. He carries a soul so full it casts a light about him, and in that swollen phase, the moon's drawn only the sky's brightest stars in. The kind of net cast on Mars and Venus, making love. When one follows branches that reach through depths as deep as looking backward, reaching out begins to feel like digging in. And we find roots that reach even the sky. Now a bundle of roots and branches stitched the future to the past and the heavens to the earth. Roots and branches reach round complications by increment, as slow and silent as space. Love you, Demo. I'm going to read a few of these. These are what I'm calling Delta 88s. I've written about 350 pages of them, so I'm only going to read a handful. A lot of them, they're going to have some of my travel pieces in them and other things. Like here's one on bumblebees. Heart of honey. Hung from a floating motor, his bumble hums him. His black velvet hands, gold specked. This small man above the blossom's silent horn, bedumbed, blind and defined by this sustaining ecstasy that hums his head, his heart, his very being, the humble bumblebee. His lust is honey. This one's for my mother's mother. Four of my four grandparents, three of them were from Europe, two from Sicily and one from France. And my mother's mother was from down south, South Carolina. And her name was Willie. Southern girl on the banks of the muddy river on a green moss carpet, cooling her bare feet. Long sun-washed grass, fireflies dimpling dusk's swollen rose, folding into itself, passing out of her like a soul in a silent movie. Grandma was Lil Liza, grown old. This is a travel poem. It's about County Clare and Ireland. It's called County Clare Pub. Peat fire casts sorrow's shadow. Hurt's rinse softens eyes, saddens, reddens a once blue rage. Words go out, but sound as if returning, softly. Burning, they glow around this tired man in his jacket, a home to heaving, a martyr unmurdered, each swollen knuckle a bead for counting. Here's one about Bosnia. It was part of the whole Yugoslavian breakup and civil wars, as you remember. His shoes walk his father's path, past hills that once hid snipers. A rain washed up graves. A mother and son, bullets to the head. Survivors fill out forms to write down who they were that last moment. Men in the ground, cut off from escape, holding hunting rifles, buried in once warm jackets. This one's for my wife, Beverly, who does a lot of work to protect people from banks in her job, working sometimes in Trenton, sometimes from home these days, but she's always working at these kinds of issues, regulating banks. Deer Park. Get government off our backs, banks say. But their zeal to lend on payday lets them ride borrowers' backs more than government ever did. Debt, mounting interest, mounting us, multiplies as rabbits do. Deer parks are not really designed for deer. They're designed for hunters. I'll do a couple more of these 88s, and then there's one last project I want to share. This one's called Enna, and it's Enna is a town in central Sicily, in the mountains. It's where the Arabs held their last stand against the Normans, and it's a beautiful town. And this is from like a noontime in Enna. Blouses and trousers hang over tangled streets, lifting a leg or an arm to a breeze that darts like a cat under a car. Children flood the cobbled streets past a shadowed alley where a lone beam scythes an exiled clump of weed for two butterflies saturated in delight. And one more of these. This is called Second Avenue. Wandering slightly lost, a Cantonese man wonders what kind of life he left behind. He hobbles hard to beat the light, his mind a gold and red dragon parading gray streets amidst rooms where words break the surface. Lost eyes shine like flashing carp in a pond's green gloom. And I want to finish up with a handful of two-line poems. This is from a project that I'm bringing pretty close to a conclusion now, 1,001 two-line poems. And when I got them all out, and right now, they came to 72 chapters. It's sort of like an autobiography. And this is all from one chapter, what I'm going to read now. There's 14 two-line poems in it, but I'm going to read like 6 of them. This is from when I graduated high school. Lost as a newborn colt, running to catch the horizon. Halfback. The form is legs on the go. Find the hole, cut back, and find a blocker. Duck and go. Nixon's patriotism. With nothing to believe in, to work for, yourself becomes the biggest object in a diminished landscape. Adulthood. From high school on, older guys got ground in grimy factory buildings and greasy gray clothing. Lincoln meets the silent majority. The dirt is dead. The grass crabs across the yard. And this one comes from my brother Lenny said to me, listening to Bob Dylan, and he said, this line was especially important. So the name of it is Don't Let Others Get Your Kicks for You, which is from Like a Rolling Stone. Renounce the enemy of others and pursue your own sight. Tread what's under you, under your own feet. And finally, and I guess this is a big message from the whole project for me, I guess. Remember, when getting inside new moments, they should be as we want them to be remembered. I can't see as well, but now I feel like I can be seen better. Anyway, thank you for listening. And this work is really ongoing. So I am now going to shift from my role as a poet to doing an introduction of one of my favorite poets, Danny Schott. I wanted to mention what I have here is an old issue of a magazine called Long Shot that Danny did. He did this for 22 years, put these out. They take a lot of work and they're not cheap. And he put out 27 of them. He had some big names. He also had people like me. You know, we had Sean Penn, he had Bukowski, he had Allen Ginsberg. Long Shot magazine, if you can find a copy, they're probably worth some money now. I bet I could get $15. No, I'm only kidding. These are really great. But anyway, he's been doing poetry as long as I can remember. As he said in my introduction that he did, we've known each other for about 45 years. And I remember meeting him at Naropa Institute, but he remembers me at Rutgers. I didn't make it at Rutgers. I mean, it was too much work for me, man. Anyway, it's been a really great thing. And this is his latest book. And it's like a collection of his favorite works, if that's the right way to put it. He's been the voice of poetry in Hoboken for so many years. I'll always associate him. I was walking around New Brunswick the other day thinking of Danny Schott, Albany Street, and all of this. But let me get out of the way here. Let me introduce my really good friend, Danny Schott. It's such a pleasure to introduce you and to be introduced by you.
Thank you, James. I really appreciate it. And I feel privileged, truly privileged to hear your new work. Your Delta 88s are terrific, and I love your two-line poems. I mean,
thank you.
This format is not great for me because I was like clapping and I was talking back to you and stuff while it was going on. And I was just talking back to...
You sound like Corso.
Well, I'm the guy who talks back to the movie. So yeah. I sort of here feel like Steve Martin or Tom Hanks in... There's an ego. In terms of this being the fourth or fifth time I've been featured poet at Backroom Broadsides. So I'm really thankful for that. And like a good returning guest, I do want to report on one thing. The Yankees score is 0-0 in, as far as I could see, in the second inning still, or bottom of the first. I could tell James is checking out the score to see.
Yeah, I was not looking at it.
But now you are. So what I'm going to do, I've done a bunch of poetry readings the past few weeks, couple of months even. And about 6 weeks ago, I was reading, and I thought about what poems of mine will get the best reaction from the audience and all that, and I chose them carefully. And in the middle of my reading, I got bored with the sound of my own voice. I just really did. So what I'm going to do today is just read all new things, and they'll hit or miss on their own. But this is what I want to do. So most everything has been written in the past year or so. I'd say most everything's been written in the past month or two or so, but not totally. Anyway, enough explaining. Let me get started. Art. Sometimes you try too hard. You hate yourself for that. You are polite to people who have no use for you. You rush your family and friends to be early for things that start too late. You say too much, forever telling your story, instead of seeking that place where art and words meet beyond narrative, that inexplicable spot. The feel of the life force, the spontaneous kiss, the guitar thrum, Chagall's flying lovers, the oak tree on the corner, the life that speaks a different language or no language at all, that you know is real and alive. Okay. That was fun, says the singer after the first song. Glad to see friends I haven't seen the past year or so. Let's rock, let's move, let's sweat together. The next band tortures the sound man, or maybe vice versa, as they take the stage and launch into a pop tune about a heroin overdose. It's a 95-degree day outside. Still, I'm dressed wrong in shorts and tee, like a New Jersey dad or granddad, adrift in a sea of black jeans, miniskirts, Converse, and pointy trash and vaudeville boots at the show at Bowery Electric, against Caroline's wishes, on a Friday night in the city. Grooving on the sins, sounds, and dreading the sweltering path ride home to Hoboken. Cindy, the singer, is beautiful, a model and chanteuse. She thinks I'm cute. At 64 years old, what does that mean? Honestly, what has it ever meant? The world is different tonight. Are we too dim to recognize the reckoning, the shift, the churning dynamo of a world in flux? One more scotch and soda. Turn around, look in the bathroom mirror, hold in my gut. I look good. I'm alive. We are alive. Rock on. Uh-oh, for those of you who are watching the Yankee game at the same time, it's not looking so great in the first inning. It's now 2-0 Boston. But let's go on with the poetry and not worry about the Yankees right now, because they'll come back. Okay, this poem is called Clothes, in parentheses, Make the Man. You promenade around the Hoboken waterfront in your new t-shirt, secret Jewish space laser core, that causes a few knowing smiles as well as a few quizzical looks that you wear proudly around the confines of your city, but are reluctant to wear in less forgiving environs. Old family photos show a well-dressed immigrant boy dressed by his parents in the fashion of 1930s Berlin, schoolboy cap, black blazer and slacks, colored vest with matching bow tie and pocket square, posing stylishly in front of a 1956 Chevy Bel Air on the grounds of Rockland Psychiatric Hospital, for the Sunday sojourn to visit Sister Susan, institutionalized weeks after your birth. You look back fondly at clothes of your past lives, the occasional fashion faux pas, as well as the choices that hit it right. The blue striped bell-bottom pants that your sister bought you in 8th grade after suffering through years of thrift store baggy pants with elastic waist that your mom bought you as schoolwear throughout the psychedelic 60s. The pride you felt as a self-styled 8th grade revolutionary for convincing reluctant student government types to change the dress code, thereby allowing girls to wear tasteful pantsuits to class and school activities. The pastel-colored underwear briefs your mother bought in the Sears bargain basement that created a stir in the locker room during a time that gym class was a mix of grades that included 19 and 20-year-olds still in high school in an effort to evade the Vietnam draft. The checkered red and white Italian restaurant shirt with black satin shoulders that you saved up your money to buy at the local head shop that you were so proud of until you overheard your boss at the pizza parlor tell a coworker, "Oh no, he's wearing that bozo shirt again." The navy bell-bottoms that you bought used at the Army-Navy store, even though they were heavy wool and hot as hell and were most inconvenient when you had to pee, needing to open the panel of 12 restrictive buttons before relief. The many flannel shirts that you inherited from your father after his death when you were 15 that were invariably 2 sizes too large but fit your Neil Young wannabe junkie aesthetic of the 70s. The pair of suede jackets that you and your girlfriend bought for $5 each at Consolata Mission thrift store between New Brunswick and Princeton, making you, in your mind at least, the trendy it couple of Rutgers University. The gratitude felt for your China department co-worker's suggestion that 2 or 3 high-quality cotton shirts, frequently washed, are a better investment than 10 cheap polyester ones that have a tendency to stink in the sultry 8th floor air of Macy's Herald Square. The purple skin-tight satin pants that you took from your roommate's closet on a hungover Tuesday morning before going in to teach a rambunctious Brooklyn special ed class, causing a commotion that you were unable to contain. The white Tyvek coveralls you and your wife wore to the artist studio tour, illustrated by a multitude of artists, one after the other, now sitting in the collections warehouse of the Hoboken Historical Museum, patiently awaiting display for when the situation warrants it. Your teacher's wardrobe sits useless in your overstocked closet. Collared white shirts, blue shirts, striped shirts, checked shirts that you hope to never have to tuck into a sensible chino or corduroy slacks ever again. The joy on the face of Bill, your father-in-law's roommate, who was a good 5 years younger than you, wasting away in the nursing home upon the deliverance of a Ramones t-shirt with pink lettering that made you look like an aging punk sausage, but made him look like the real deal before he disappeared from your life forever. For no reason at all, you try on the custom-tailored blue suit that you just spent a small fortune on for the wedding of your son's friend, which you know you look good in, though the photos give the impression of a mafia boss surrounded by his loyal family. You sometimes fret about what occasion will necessitate the opportunity to wear it again before the day of your own funeral arrives. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay, this is a true story, I think. Heinrich Heine reconsiders. 1. I can't decide if it's easy or difficult to pass judgment, so I won't. According to family lore, we are the offspring of Heinrich Heine. There are black and white photos of my sisters and I posing at the Lorelei Fountain at Joyce Kilmer Park in the Bronx, near where I was born, which prove absolutely nothing. The story goes like this. Heinrich was madly in love with his cousin, a relationship frowned upon by the family, who put an unceremonious end to it. Heinrich, the enfant terrible, then fell in love with her sister, also his cousin, with whom he fathered a child. The baby was put up for adoption, and this child grew up to become my great-great-great-grandmother, who gave birth to Leah Weishaus, my great-grandmother, who was murdered at Theresienstadt, along with her daughter Theodora, my grandmother, who was murdered at Auschwitz, along with her husband Solly Mentheim, my grandfather, and grandson Ernst Lester, my brother in 1943. 2. The poet speaks. My bastards will thank me to not bear the weight of my name. Much good the counterfeit conversion to my grandchildren at Auschwitz. Wherever books are burned, they will also in the end burn human beings. Can my descendants prove my blood beyond rumor, if they should care in the lands they've scattered? I was never a good Jew, more so the satyr's wicked son, questioning the rituals by which we're bound. The old laws of the tribe, not my passion. God will forgive me. It's his job. Ring around the smokestacks, pocket full of gold teeth, ashes, ashes, we all disappear. Okay. Damnation. This is the oldest poem in the group. This was written a few days after January 6th. Damnation. Walking the Hoboken waterfront to hold off the doldrums lurking behind each lonely day, I search the eyes of my neighbors, frightened, hopeful, distracted. We can't continue to feel like victims of each other, a death spiral of empty choices offered in the zero-sum game of Russian roulette. Shots are fired from behind a door as the white walkers swarm through the hallway. Having breached the gates, they arrive, enraged, ready to chew up all that lies inside. Like a serpent eating its tail, we go round in circles, chasing lie after lie, debunking alternative facts. America has suffered a collective failure of imagination, allowing ourselves to be driven to the abyss and must move past preventive strategies into the punishment phase of restoring democracy. A tentacled specter has been unleashed, infecting our aspirations for a better union with the dizzying swirl of apocalyptic ruin. A disgraced president's cult of death cannot become a way of life. 2 years ago, we wondered if we were living through the equivalent of 1933. But now we know we're in 1938 and Kristallnacht just happened again. Our parents and grandparents were the original Antifa, and we celebrate their bravery and sacrifice. We have allowed pretenders to wrap themselves in the worn flag of patriotism without a counter-narrative of our own. Racism is our original sin, and a reckoning is due. Let us atone for our transgressions through admission, action, penance, and maybe salvation. We have built walls, physical and metaphysical, holding us trapped in a state of perpetual stasis, cut off from each other and the rest of the world. Social media has shamed us into impotence, keyboard warriors helplessly posting sad and angry dispatches from our ravenous screens. We, and let me be clear, we on the left, need to be less rigid, more agile than we have ever been before. We have sat by as the right has amassed arms for years and have every reason to be frightened, but courage happens when we are afraid and yet still carry on. One side speaks of paranoid conspiracies unleashed by tweet from a deranged head of state, while the other side speaks of itself to itself in codified language nobody else can or wants to understand. Though our past looms vulture-like, awaiting the final spark of ammunition to flicker and fade, we have to look forward to rebuild our infrastructure and collective soul. Though the hounds of hell are yapping at our heels, God give us the strength to take the mind leap, to live again, for the day that we dance maskless and free. Let us begin again. Okay, couple more. Identity. Aside from Jews and lesbians, white people haven't done shit for my writing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a traitor. White folks have hired me for work most of the time, and they have made me laugh at the television now and then. They've designed practical clothing I fit into, though the legs are too long. White people like to categorize, create genres and subgenres, which our children will study in exorbitant palaces of higher learning. We want to be considered white people, us Jews do, but we rarely seem to get it right. Where do I fit into the spectrum of whiteness? It's probably not proper to say they when it should be we. We who have invented isms, private property, Diet Coke, and professional football. We make the unspoken rules, though we loathe to share them with those in need. We reshuffle borders, rename other peoples, and mess with our pronouns when we are bored. We see God in our image, will destroy each other after we are done destroying those we choose to not understand. No matter our politics, we are sure we're right. We create mythologies based on our fears. We are frightened, unapologetic, unmasked, unvaccinated, unaccountable, unhinged. Okay, now a poem that I consider the companion piece to that, even though it's very different in many ways. It's called The Professors. I don't teach Ginsberg, he says, too problematic. Or Whitman. Same problem. Besides, have you read what he said about manifest destiny? No, I reply. And I know Whitman's work pretty well. You have to look at his journalism to see his imperialistic sympathies. But he was writing in the 1850s, I counter. People had different beliefs. Wrong beliefs are wrong beliefs, he tells me. I am sitting at a table at a Cuban restaurant celebrating the birthday of a friend. Most of our group of 12 are college professors. A few are also poets. All are younger than me. And Junot Diaz, I wish he wasn't so problematic because a lot of my students who identify as female like his work. So what do you teach, I ask. Audre Lorde is one. She's very good, I say. They're very good, he corrects. It's very confusing, I admit. I know, he says. It's a generational thing. It is. At this point, I can no longer contain myself. That's why I call myself a liberal and not a progressive, because too many progressives are illiberal in their views. I might as well have farted loudly or declared myself a Nazi. The stunned silence is palpable. Finally, the conversation picks up and I listen to another professor who previously said she was not renewed because of her politics tell the person across from her that she's not getting vaccinated until more research is done. Jesus Christ, I mutter loudly to myself. I need a cigarette. I wander across the street and look through the tavern window to watch the Jets blow another game. 50 years of losing and counting. Okay, one last poem, and this is a short one. Deborah. We played DJ with each other. And oh yeah, we drank tequila. It was glorious. Everybody Rules the World, The Velvet Underground, and Sweet Melissa. We walk arm in arm down 6th Avenue. Nothing has ever been better. They are looking at us. We are beautiful. We own the street. We own the night. That's it.
Bravo.
Thank you.
I'll tell you, the silence of these things, between the poems, I wanted to like slap you on the back and stuff, because it was so cool, man. But it's the silence of Zoom. Anyway, this kind of the Warriors Online and that last conversation, wow. Listen, everybody, we're going to do this again on November 2nd with 2 other writers. I was really delighted to get my work out, and it was wonderful to hear Danny once again. And I think this is like the fourth or fifth time, but he's part of this thing, and whether he likes it or not, he's only down in Hoboken. We're in Jersey City, and we'll be having him back. But I'm not sure what November 2nd is going to be yet, but we'll have something on November 2nd, and it'll be right in time to help us all get ready for the vote. I wanted to say something about Heinrich Heine, if I might.
Okay.
I was in Berlin with another poet years ago now. And Heinrich, she had the journal of Heinrich Heine. And I've read a handful of his poems. I was never that moved by him. I probably found the wrong poems. But anyway, in his journal, he wrote in the 1840s or 50s, he wrote that, behind all the Christianity and Judaism in Germany, there's these old Norse gods. He goes, someday, 1850, he said this, someday those Norse gods are going to come back to the foreground. And that's going to be some scary shit. He didn't say that, but that's pretty much what he meant. Anyway, folks, thanks for coming out. And now I know I have an heir of Heinrich Heine with me, or Heinrich Heine, to say it correctly.
Bastard illegitimate spawn, yes.
The illegitimate spawn of Heinrich Heine. What a pleasure. Anyway, thank you, folks. Thanks for coming out. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
It was a joy reading with you, man.
Same here. Same here.
Let's do it again.
Mm-hmm.